Welcome to the OShow. I'm Laura Babcock, and joining us for his first in-depth OShow interview is Chamber President and CEO Greg Dunnett. Let me just welcome you, and right out of the gate, can you tell me why the Chamber matters in 2023 and moving forward for the rest of the city of Hamilton?
Thank you very much, Laura, for having me on here. Long-time watcher, and now first-time joiner. So fantastic. 178-year-old organization, right? So we're talking about an institution that has played a leading role in our community for a long time. Coming out of the pandemic, we've got a great opportunity before us, not only as a chamber, but as a community, right? I think we're all looking, and I know a huge part of what you talk about is how do we make this a fantastic city? And that's where I think the opportunity for the chamber is. One thing that I have seen in my first 6 months on the role is that the needs of the business community and the needs of Hamiltonians are, almost perfectly, if not perfectly, overlapping now. We need housing. We need a stronger and better trained labor force. We need a new transportation infrastructure that helps get people to where they need to go. And we need to provide support to our social, the social needs of our community as well. And so where the chamber can play a leading role is in making sure that those needs continue to be aligned so that a strong business community will help support a strong Hamilton, and a strong Hamilton will help support a strong business community.
Well, we know that the Chamber has been very involved and a proponent of higher order transit in terms of the LRT project. Are you looking at, for instance, affordable housing along the route and how to make sure we get that built?
I think that's a fair question. And what I would say is right now we need housing of all shapes and sizes. We need affordable housing. We also need attainable housing. And we need housing. We have an aging population. We have a need to continue to support that population in Hamilton here. And part of what LRT is going to do is help connect our city from end to end. And that's going to allow people to get to work in a new and exciting way. We are going to continue to lead in terms of supporting growth and development. So we're working on something right now, but bringing the leadership of our community together and saying, how do we support downtown? Because we have LRT, Laura. We also have an entertainment district that's going to be impacted for the next 2 years, and we also have the city center is one of many major transformations going on in the city right now. I mean, I think we all get excited when we drive into town and see all the cranes that are up in our city, which is fantastic. But we have to make sure that while we go through that progress to ultimately a fantastic state, we're also working to provide supports so that when we get to this completely transformed downtown and community, we have all of the great aspects that make this a fantastic place to work in and to live in. I mean, I would I love Hamilton because I can go for a run. I can go watch a great football team or the rock or ride sports. Yeah, I love sports, and I can also, and I love the people, right? And so I think we have to be, and we can go out for dinner and we can have a fantastic dinner or lunch almost, and there's almost too many good restaurants to choose. We have to make sure that we have those there when we do have everything back online in the next, I'm not going to wager a guess as to when we're going to have it all online, but as soon as possible.
As we're looking at these cranes and these potential condos coming, we're also seeing people who are suffering in absolute poverty and chronic homelessness. And so the question becomes, do you think that's going to result in helping people in our downtown be safer and to find the kind of urgent housing they need? It just feels to me like, we're at risk of developing and gentrifying the area and not caring for the rest of Hamiltonians, or in fact making it feel safe to go down for dinner at night, because it doesn't always. So how is the chamber looking at that as you look at developing around the LRT opportunities, the entertainment opportunities, and all the rest of it?
A good question. And I know part of supporting the business community is making sure that we do have a safe community, right, Laura? I think that's really important. And so one of the aspects and key roles that the chamber plays in strengthening a community is convening leadership. So do I have every answer for that? I don't, but what I do have is strong relationships with Hamilton Health Sciences and St. Joe's and the YWCA and the YMCA and the United Way. So bringing that leadership together and saying, and our power to convene leadership and say, how can we help support, and where, we can, I think sometimes we can say we have a housing issue, or you can say we have a housing crisis. And you can almost go through a lot of things right now. There's been so much change in the world in the last 4 years that what we really need to do is say, what are the first order solutions that make an immediate impact now, that will, even if we don't have all the answers, we know it's going to get us moving forward. And so I'm very hopeful in the next few weeks, we're going to start that process and bringing some of our social leaders together to say, hey, how can we help support downtown? Because it's hard to miss when you're driving downtown. And I'll take a small example from my life in sports and entertainment. So I was a director of guest experience for Rogers Place in Edmonton and Tim Hortons Field at Tiger Cats. And both of those, our customer service philosophies, both of them started with an S, and it was for safety. Because if you don't feel safe, it's really hard to have a good time at a sporting event, and it's really hard to go downtown. And so that's not just about the entertainment, it's also about supporting the people who feel unsafe if they're unhoused or otherwise. And again, our role at the chamber is to help play a role in bringing those people together to help come up with solutions to the issues we're facing right now.
So how do you get them to the table? Are they currently engaged with the chamber? Where do you think you get that leadership from, that you're able to start that kind of conversation?
Right now, I don't think I think we have to go about it in that way. I'm lucky enough to be in an important role in our community. And so to steal a line from Spider-Man and my generation Spider-Man, Peter Parker's grandpa says to him, with great power comes great responsibility. I think for all of us in leadership roles in our community, and Laura, let me just say, one thing I've just been so energized by in this community is that whether you're running a small business or a major corporation or a not-for-profit, people want their business to be successful, but they want Hamilton to be successful. That community pride we have is fantastic. But I think I opened kind of with, we can't have a strong Hamilton without a strong business community, and vice versa. That's where I think it is our role to say, we're going to bring you together. We're going to help amplify your voice. Again, our current marketing tagline is your voice in business, but I think we're champions of not only the Hamilton business community, we're champions of Hamilton. And as long as I'm in this role, we're going to play a leadership role in that capacity.
Well, I'm glad to hear it, because I think sometimes people can see the city as bifurcated between the business development interests in particular and some of these other crises. And, however you feel about whoever's in the downtown council job, Greg, the former councillor seemed to be more of a champion of development, had some critical comments about some of the housing issues that were happening. And our current councillor seems to be very much about addressing some of those issues with people who are needing housing. So that makes the conversation shift a little bit in terms of this prime entertainment district downtown and some of the other development that's happening. And so what I'm wondering from you is to build the trust, to bridge that bifurcation, that it's not business versus community interest versus business. If you're going to play that role as a leader to bridge that, isn't transparency a big part of that? I mean, the previous council signed a 49-year secret deal with downtown private businesses to run a big chunk of that entertainment district you talked about. Is the chamber committed to transparency in your process and in communicating regularly what you're up to, why you're up to it, so that the community can really feel they can trust this business organization?
As someone who's come in and looked at values of our organization, and I know one that is at the top of the list. And of course, I have the privilege of speaking for 1,000 businesses and 75,000 employees of those businesses. I also report into a board that is a diverse group of leaders in this community. Integrity is at the top of, is in one of those 5 or 6 key buckets of values. So when I think of integrity, Laura, what I would say is that there's always going to be gray, to your point, and you'll have one counselor go one way and one another. The reality is we need to do both simultaneously, and that's hard, and that's difficult. So one thing that I aspire to do in my life and in any organization or department that I've ever led is we want to the best of our ability, be transparent, to be honest. It's, I generally find if you're a good person, life's a lot easier to live because you can just, you know, that you're generally living within the guidelines and rules of being adding value and being supportive. And so we have to advocate for business because we need business to support our community. But we also have to make Hamilton a stronger place to live in because again, it's 1,000 businesses, but it's 75,000 employees who, the more we can get them to live here, right? Like even if you go a step further, and look at, I was in a event last week and they're talking about that if you have a strong community, up to 50% of the students that graduate from a post-secondary education will stay here. Like, how do we strengthen this community and create more high-paying jobs? It's by creating an environment where people want to live here and work here.
I think your bridging is extremely important. For a strong Hamilton, you need a strong business community and vice versa. And keeping our kids here is something I've heard from viewers for many years, Greg. They want their kids to feel safe downtown, to enjoy this beautiful city, to be able to make those choices after post-secondary, to stay here and have a thriving career. So it's a big dream, and I'm hearing your vision clearly. But where do your 7,500 or your 1,000 members, 75,000 employees, where did they stand?
Yeah, just to jump back to the start of your point, I would have to say that we want our kids to live in this community, but not with us until they're 35, right? I think at least that's what I'm hopeful for.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
We need rental opportunities for our kids and affordable housing. Right.
I love them both.
Yeah.
My daughter's 14. She got her first job interview today, so we were doing some prep on the weekend. So starting that process and making sure a little bit of money goes into savings. When you represent such a large segment of business, we have different sizes and shapes of organizations, so we have different needs. What I would say though is that what I'm hearing is one is convening leadership, so bringing people together, and I've kind of talked about that throughout this conversation. Bring them together and having that unified voice, right? So we want to have a unified voice. Two is really focusing on the key aspects that can give our community and our businesses a key competitive advantage. And I think probably very high level, those are in fact housing, labor market, strengthening the labor market, implementing a full transportation system. Again, we have issues like area rating, where we've got business parks going up on the outside of the community right now, and we can't get proper busing there because of the rules of our transportation system. Investments in infrastructure, and then the final one is climate, right? And we haven't talked about it. And we want our kids to live in our community. We also want our kids to live in a world that they can dream about having their own kids and not worry about it. And I think I can only speak for myself, but I know occasionally I worry about the world we're leaving our kids. So strengthening that for the kids and our businesses, but then we also have to remember what a chamber does. And so we're going to advocate for those aspects. We also have to provide them networking opportunities and opportunities to grow their business. So that is something that we're looking to do. So I guess that's our third one. And then, I think Laura, and I think Keenan did do a good job of this, is taking our organization, being a leader in our community and pushing Hamilton forward. And so amplifying the voice of the business community and Hamilton as a whole. And then I think the fifth one is being that champion. That's kind of what we're looking to focus on. Sometimes that means supporting downtown. We've got working with our advanced manufacturers to create a greener Hamilton. We need to work with Mac and Mohawk and on life sciences, or on developing skills, helping grow our life sciences. Again, if I'm looking at an opportunity in our community to have Hamilton's BlackBerry. That's probably my best guess as to where it's going to come from, but I'm more than willing to listen to anybody who thinks that they already have the next kind of multi-billion-dollar business that changes the landscape of our community, because we're here to support them in any way possible.
So, Greg, thank you for telling us where you're at as an organization and what your values are personally, so that our audience gets to know you. I feel that in your role at the chamber and just the nature of the job and being the voice of business, there might be things that come up, in front of council, programs, projects, etc., that could be controversial and potentially not aligned with my values or that of our audience necessarily here on the OShow. Are you committed to coming back and discussing the difficult things? Are you going to be transparent in your leadership in terms of that community dynamic? Because honestly, I don't think there'll be a lot of trust if there's a difficult conversation and the chamber decides that they're not going to engage in some of the difficult conversations with community shows like this. So are you committed as a leader to stay engaged and to discuss either in front of council or, I hope, here on the OShow, some of the issues that may come up over the next 5 years?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I hope I'm not back here next week, but because we're having difficult issues. Listen, I don't know how you say, hey, like, part of making integrity a value means that you don't get to pick and choose when you have integrity. So you're right. We're not always going to agree on everything, but having respectful, educated discussions is a very important part of progress. And I can tell you, my group of friends who have been my group of friends since the 20s, there was an article in Hamilton City Magazine where I was described as affable, and they're like, "Who are they talking about?" But anyway, so because those guys I like to have fun, engaging arguments with. You know, but when it comes to critical things, that yes, I can commit to coming on, and even if we're going to completely and utterly disagree on something, that's okay, because you'll be respectful and I'll be respectful, and we'll share our views, and hopefully your viewers can make their decision on what they feel is who won the argument, and I'll do my best to keep up.
You know, it's really, I appreciate your humor. It's less about who wins. It's more about having the transparency and the engagement, and that's what the OShow has always tried to do. Even if we bring people on whose opinions I don't agree with, can they deliver their ideas and explain their choices and help educate the audience so that we are truly working together for, as you said off the top, a great city. That's always been the goal of any shows that I've ever hosted in this community. We have to talk. If we're not talking, then we start to get into these different camps, right? And then we start to see the kind of dysfunction that costs all of us and costs our progress. So I love that you want to start getting people at the table to deal with the bigger picture, not just the business interests, and that a stronger city in your mind is also a stronger chamber, and vice versa. So thank you so much, Greg Dunnett, for coming on the show. And we hope to have you back as a check-in at some point, even if it's not for a debate.
That sounds fantastic. And hey, you know what? It's kind of often like my beautiful, wonderful, talented wife, Caroline. We have an argument and we walk away thinking we both won. So right?
As long as the issues are being discussed, that's what makes for a good conversation.
Exactly.
And for all of you watching, subscribe on YouTube to get more of this local content, and let me know what you think of the new Chamber of Commerce President and CEO, Greg Dunnett, and their values and our conversation about the future of Hamilton. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, Greg.
Thanks, Laura.